Learn English through story. Whispers of a Forbidden Love. In the kingdom of Engliah, nestled between vast rolling hills and deep, mystical forests, there was a castle so grand it was said to touch the heavens. King Alaric ruled with a steady hand, a man of wisdom and fairness. His daughter, Princess Elena, was known throughout the land for her beauty and grace. Her long, raven hair cascaded like midnight waves, and her bright emerald eyes could pierce the heart of any man. Though admired by many, Elena was no ordinary princess. She was fiercely independent, her mind sharper than the sword of any knight. She dreamed of a life beyond the boundaries of royal expectations, a life where she could follow her own heart and carve her own path. But in Leandria, love, especially for a princess, was a matter of politics, not passion. Her future, like those of many royal women, was planned, and her marriage would be nothing more than an alliance between kingdoms. As Elena neared her 21st birthday, suitors from distant lands flooded the palace. Princes and lords came with gifts, vying for her hand, but she felt no connection to any of them. Each meeting left her heart cold, and she longed to escape the suffocating weight of her royal obligations. It was during one of these lavish banquets that Elena first noticed Cashin, the king's most trusted advisor. Tall, with brooding dark eyes and a quiet intensity, Cashin was a man of few words. He had risen from humble beginnings, the son of a blacksmith, and had earned his place in the king's court through sheer brilliance and loyalty. Though he often stayed in the background, his presence was magnetic, and Elena found herself drawn to him in ways she could not explain. At first, their interactions were brief, a shared glance across the grand hall, a quiet word exchanged in the palace gardens. But as days turned into weeks, Elena sought out reasons to see him, to hear his voice, to bask in the calm yet electric aura that surrounded him. She knew it was dangerous. Cashin was not of noble blood, and a relationship between them would be forbidden. Yet the more time she spent in his presence, the more she felt the stirrings of something deep within her, something she could not deny. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Elena found herself wandering through the palace gardens. The air was thick with the scent of roses, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. As she rounded a corner, she saw Cashin standing by the fountain, lost in thought. Without hesitation, she approached him. "Cashin," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the bubbling of the fountain. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Your Highness," he replied, bowing slightly. "Is there something you need?" Elena hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. She had always been composed, always in control, but in this moment, she felt as though she were standing on the edge of a precipice. "A broken bar. I don't know what it is about you," she began, her voice trembling. "But when I'm near you, I feel a." Before she could finish, Cashin closed the distance between them in a single, swift movement, his hand gently taking hers. "You mustn't say it," he whispered, his voice strained. "You know as well as I do that it can never be." Elena's breath caught in her throat. She had always known the rules, had always understood the consequences. But standing there, with Cashin so close she could feel the warmth of his skin, all reason seemed to vanish. "But what if we could?" she asked, her eyes searching his. Cashin's expression hardened. You are a princess, Elena. Your life is not your own. And a broken bar, I am nothing more than a servant to the crown. If anyone were to find out, I don't care about the crown. Elena interrupted, her voice rising. I care about what I feel, about what's in my heart. And my heart tells me. She stopped herself, but the words hung in the air between them, undeniable and unspoken. For a long moment, Cashin said nothing. His gaze softened, and without warning, he pulled her close, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was as tender as it was fierce. Time seemed to stop, the world falling away until there was nothing but the two of them, tangled in a forbidden embrace. But as quickly as it had begun, Cashin broke away, his face pale. "This is madness," he whispered. "We cannot continue like this." "Why not?" Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "Why should we deny what we feel just because others say it's wrong?" Cashin took a step back, his hand running through his dark hair in frustration. "Because it would destroy everything," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Your father would never allow it. And if he found out a broken bar, you could lose everything: your title, your place in this world. You would be disgraced." Elena looked at him, her heart breaking at the thought of what could never be. She knew he was right. Their love, no matter how real or how powerful, would never be accepted. The kingdom would never allow a princess to be with someone of Cashin's station, no matter how loyal or intelligent he was. For days after that kiss, they kept their distance, each of them struggling with their own feelings. But despite their best efforts, the pull between them only grew stronger. Every stolen glance, every brief touch, fueled the fire that burned between them. Elena's suitors continued to come and go, but she dismissed them all with increasing impatience. She knew none of them could ever make her feel the way Cashin did. But the pressure from her father mounted, and it was clear that the king expected her to choose a husband soon. The weight of her duty pressed down on her, suffocating her. One evening, after another tiresome dinner with potential suitors, Elena could take it no longer. She sought out Cashin, finding him in the palace library, surrounded by ancient texts and maps. "Cashin," she said, her voice trembling with urgency, "I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend that my heart isn't breaking every day we're apart." Cashin looked up at her, his eyes filled with the same torment she felt. "Elena, I love you," he admitted, his voice raw. "But we can't have a future together." "Why not?" Elena demanded, her voice breaking. "Why should we let this kingdom decide our fate? Why should we let them tell us who we can and can't love?" Cashin stood, crossing the room to stand in front of her. He gently cupped her face in his hands, his touch sending shivers down her spine. "Because the world is cruel," he said softly, "and the higher you stand, the more it will tear you down if you fall. I can't let you destroy yourself for me." Tears filled Elena's eyes as she realized the truth of his words. She had always known their love was impossible, but now, hearing him say it, the reality of it hit her like a blow. "I don't care," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I would rather be disgraced and free to love you than live a lie for the rest of my life." Cashin's expression softened, and for a moment, Elena thought he might give in. But then he stepped back, shaking his head. "You don't know what you're asking," he said. "If we were found out, it wouldn't just be your reputation at stake. It would be your life." Elena's heart sank. She knew he was right. The kingdom's laws were clear. Any noble who engaged in a relationship with a commoner would be stripped of their title, exiled, or worse, and if the king felt his authority was being undermined, the punishment could be even more severe. But despite the risks, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that their love was worth fighting for. "There has to be a way," she said, her voice thick with desperation. "We could leave the kingdom, we could start a new life somewhere far away, where no one knows who we are." Cashin's eyes darkened. "And what kind of life would that be?" he asked quietly. "Living in fear, always looking over our shoulders?" "That's not the life I want for you." Elena felt her heart breaking. She had never imagined that love could feel so hopeless. "So what do we do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Do we just walk away and pretend this never happened?" Cashin hesitated, his eyes filled with sorrow. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know this, no matter what happens, I will always love you. And I will always want what's best for you, even if that means letting you go." Elena closed her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. She knew that this was their reality, caught between the love they felt and the cruel restrictions of their world. And as much as she wanted to believe they could defy the odds, deep down, she knew that the kingdom's rules were unbreakable. In the end, they said their final goodbye in the moonlit garden where they had shared their first kiss. Their hearts were heavy, but they knew there was no other way. Love, they realized, was not always enough to overcome the barriers of their world. As Cashin walked away into the shadows, Elena stood alone in the garden, her heart aching with the knowledge that sometimes, even the deepest love must be sacrificed for the sake of survival. Love is powerful, but it exists within the constraints of the world around us. Sometimes, no matter how deep the connection, circumstances force difficult choices. True love may mean accepting the limits of reality, even when it breaks your heart, and learning to let go for the sake of the greater good. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.